A rocket easily hit the US military aircraft carrier, which is known as the Airbus. What's more fatal is that the 30 posters on the plane are so sharp that you can't even see the enemy's full armor. And this major loss is undoubtedly more than the fall of the Black Eagle, which is the darkest moment in the operation of the US Special Forces in Afghanistan. In the early morning of August 4, 2011, the US Intelligence Department received a report from a local informant. He claimed to have overheard the secret news of the Taliban. Its senior leader, Khalil Taseer, may appear in Afghanistan on the 5th and planned an attack in the Panjshir Valley region of Mardak Province. And after the payment of the information, the clue was also reported to the U.S. Joint Special Operations Command in Prague, North Carolina. Although the analysis was carried out, many senior U.S. military personnel in the command said that this kind of unconfirmed information was very risky. But just 2 months after taking office, Commander Joseph Walter, in a hurry to make a contribution, said that he would seize this rare opportunity. As soon as he ordered his assistants in the local U.S. military to carry out the operation, he was arrested directly when the conditions were ripe. After the mission was assigned to the 75th Guerrilla Corps that had just arrived at the front line of the Lodz province on August 5th, Afghanistan time, and according to the command's plan, the Guerrilla Corps would be transported by CH-47B helicopters to the mission site. And considering the depth of the operation, in order to ensure the success of the mission and the safety of the personnel, they also specially dispatched 2 Apache-armed helicopters to escort the guerrillas. And during the operation, there will be an AC-130 aircraft carrier that will arrive at the target airspace in advance. Once an accident occurs, it will immediately provide fierce ground fire support. At 21:55 p.m. that night, the command received an RQ-4 Global Eagle and Y-8 intelligence surveillance aircraft report, and a trace of the target activity was found. 47 guerrillas in full gear were divided into 2 teams and boarded 2 CH-47B transport helicopters to depart from the frontline base. At 10:33 p.m., the command received another emergency report. They detected dozens of armed men on trucks heading for the target area. Considering that this factor may lead to a greater increase in the difficulty of the guerrilla mission, the frontline command immediately coordinated the 17 posters of the Naval Special Development Team as a preparation team. Once the guerrillas are in danger, they can intervene as a rapid support force to ensure the completion of the mission. At 23:06, the Chinook team arrived at the target area 1 kilometer away from the camp. The guerrillas quickly descended under the cover of nightfall and moved forward in secret. But soon after being escorted, Apache discovered a new danger. The pilot saw dozens of armed men through night vision equipment and seemed to have noticed something. They rushed from the house to their gun position, but it was obviously, facing the overwhelming advantage of the equipment, all this was in vain. Under the precise design of the 30mm machine gun of the armed helicopter, half of their injuries were so embarrassing that they ran away. At 22:22, the guerrillas were divided into 2 teams and approached the target building from the left and right. In 5 minutes, they would have completed the surrounding control situation. Just as the ground team accelerated their actions, a global paratrooper who was scouting in the air sent another warning. 4 unknown armed men were leaving the building from the back door. From the behavior analysis, they are likely to be guards. As expected, a few minutes later, many unknown people ran out. The guerrillas, who were scouting back and forth and scouting forward, were also suddenly attacked. Hidden in the tower of the roadside building, armed men used heavy weapons to launch a fierce attack on them. And when the gunshot rang out, the drone found a number of small-scale Pikachu teams again through night vision equipment. Although the command post ordered the 130 cannon to block the surrounding Taliban reinforcements in time, it was obvious that the task of the guerrilla group to launch an attack at this time had been exposed. Looking at the picture of the drone's return, the main target was gradually escaping the battle zone. Worried that the U.S. military senior officials hiding in the same tower line could not sit still, because it was harder to wait for another chance after the alert was cleared this time than to go to the sky. After the balance was established, the command post decided to dispatch the fast-accelerating reinforcements to directly intercept the target. And considering that the more armed men there were, the more the original 17 posters increased to 30. At 6 a.m., 30 posters and a military dog boarded 2 Chinook helicopters again, but due to the frontline soldiers clinging to the Apache helicopter, they couldn't leave the battlefield. The Chinook team had to act rashly in the absence of escort. And before departure, the commander temporarily considered the situation on the battlefield and changed the number of armed escort, so he decided to let all 33 focus on one plane, and the other Chinook was used as a bait, detecting and attracting ground fire. The imagination is beautiful, but the reality is not as expected as he expected. Although the two helicopters chose to go around the front line and approach the target from the back, the huge engine sound still attracted the attention of other armed men. As soon as they entered the target area, they were violently shot by the ground PKM heavy machine guns. And in order to ensure that the helicopters full of posters successfully completed the delivery, the second helicopter left the border in 5 minutes from the starting point and began to rapidly circle around to attract ground fire. At 2:37 a.m., the Chinook full of posters reported to the command to approach the target and was expected to put down the troops in a minute. But as the helicopter began to descend in altitude, the two Taliban fireway groups hidden in the dark also locked this American helicopter. They ambushed on the left and right high ground and launched RPGs at the same time. Although the pilot found the situation and tried to escape, the second rocket was still accurately hit by the helicopter's rear propeller and destroyed it. Under the great concern, the Chinook fell heavily into the valley within 5 seconds, and in this case, no one on the plane responded. Although an Apache came to the rescue in 30 seconds after the troops had fallen, it did not find any survivors climbing out of the cabin. And after the command heard the Apache's report, it also fell into the abyss. This loss was undoubtedly shocking and unbearable. The commander of the base sent a 20-man scout team and sent this bad omen back to the United States. Later, the commander of the Joint Special Operations Command, Joseph Lauder, who learned of the news, also issued a new order to the frontline base. No matter what, bring back the remains of the dead pirate. And at this time, the guerrillas who had just been arrested also received a new mission. The command ordered them to march towards the crash site and assist the arrived scout team to complete the post-war work. In this way, the post-war work was barely over. Although the US military successfully evacuated the troops under the cover of armed helicopters and air cannons, things are far from over. Because after the abductor was shot down on the 17th, the US military reconnaissance drone had overheard the rebellious using binocular radio to brag to others. Until later, the commander analyzed carefully and found that this might be a trap set up in advance. The Taiwan armed group deliberately leaked the rumor to attract the US military and then ambushed the 4 machines in the valley to eliminate them. It was unbearable. The US Frontline Command immediately sent more reconnaissance equipment. On the night of August 6th, the Global Eagle drone again overheard the ground rebellious talking about shooting down the US military transport plane. As soon as the US Signal Intelligence Center began to accurately coordinate and mark this person as the first suspect, Genosa, and in order as much as possible to hit the US high level, they did not hesitate to do so. They continued to search for possible accomplices and let the aircraft stationed at the Shanghai Air Force Base be well prepared. On August 8th, the U.S. Military Intelligence Department said that through a large number of monitoring and analysis, it had fully mastered the hiding place of the 6 people, including the planner and his accomplices. As soon as the U.S. high-level ordered to take revenge. On 9 a.m., an F-16 aircraft loaded with ammunition took off from Shanghai Airport. When it reached its target, it shared information with the MQ-10 drone that was monitored here. And under his guidance, 4 GBU-54 missiles were launched to jointly attack the ammunition. It is obvious that under the attack of such a high-precision bomb, the armed groups have nowhere to hide. Although the drone was shot down, the American people who conducted the damage assessment but the atmosphere were not ready to give up. Instead, they sent the E-300 air cannon again and the Apache armed helicopter to fire fiercely at the wreckage after the explosion. Although a day later, the Pentagon claimed that it had eliminated the culprit who was suspected ambushing the U.S. military helicopter, but 38 U.S. soldiers were killed, which is the single-day loss of the whole war in Afghanistan.